Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Traversing the Stars podcast. Today's special guest is Lee Shorten. You know him from the TV show The Man in the High Castle. He now is doing dub work for the TV show Squid Game. You can also find him in the movies Glitch and Swan Song, now available on Apple Plus. Now come join us as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Shorten. Thank you for coming to the Traversing the Stars podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeff. Glad to be here.
It's definitely my pleasure. Like I said, I've been wanting to talk to you for a while.
I'm glad we finally, the stars aligned and we can do this.
Perfect segue into our podcast. That's perfect. Thank you very much. So I always like to start off with a question of inspiration. So what inspired you to become an actor and who were your earliest influences?
Oh, well, that's a good question.
Oh, thank
you. The funny thing is I never really wanted to be an actor. I wasn't one of those kids. I've always loved film and TV. And I guess I really originally thought I'd be a director more so than an actor, but somehow I ended up acting. So, one of the earliest things I think probably, and it's such a broy answer, but Fight Club was a huge inspiration.
Oh, I love that movie so damn much.
Yeah, me too. It is so good. So,
geez, and it's kind of funny. I teach a high school class. And one of the clips I show is from Fight Club. There's a scene where he's talking about advertisers and what they want people to be purchasing, like that. I always show that clip. And it's a very underappreciated genius movie, even though, like you said, it is kind of a bro movie, but it's actually like very layered.
Oh, 100%. It's just that I think it's been co-opted a little bit by, certain people, but yeah, it's you're right. The plot, the acting, a lot of the technical stuff, it was just, it really kind of blew my mind back in the day. So
yeah, it's one of those movies where there's a meme going around. I can't quite remember the meme, but it shows you a few characters. If this was your hero, you misunderstood the plot. Fight Club seems to be like where there's a lot of people who just misunderstand what it's trying to do and just kind of get like the fighting each other part. But it still is a very smart movie. It's a very smart movie.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess that's the earliest kind of real inspiration in terms of like wanting to seriously pursue a creative career that I can think of.
Well, speaking of smart, you earned a bachelor's degree in law from the University of Newcastle, which is very impressive. So why did you first pursue law?
It's one of those things. I graduated high school and I was lucky that my grades were pretty good and I didn't know what to do with my life. And everyone was like, well, look, you have to go to med school or law school. They're like, you just have to do that. So I was like, oh, okay. And I always say this, but law school seemed the easier option. So that's
the
how
med
I
school.
ended up there. Yeah.
Well, as a lawyer, if you lose a case, the worst thing that happens, the guy loses money. If you're a doctor and you mess up, that's a lot worse when someone dies.
Unless you get Cape Feared and then, Robert De Niro chases you down and tries to murder your family.
That's a much bigger concern. Yes, that murdering your family will be bad, but as a single person, doctor much scarier. Yeah. And I imagine as an actor, having a law background must really help during contract time.
You would think so, except, my agents and managers and everyone handle all that stuff. So I rarely look at my own contracts, to be honest.
So you go with the fingers crossed method?
Hey, you know what? If I'm paying these people a cut, they might as well work for it.
No, good point. So when you're in law school, you're preparing to be a lawyer. At what point did you decide not interested in being a lawyer anymore? I'm going to go for an actor because that's way less risky.
Well, I was a lawyer for a few years, actually.
Okay.
So I practiced for a few years and I was deeply, deeply unhappy. And that was kind of when I was like, well, what am I going to do? Because I'm very unhappy. What makes me happy? And then I remembered how much, because I was that kid who like watched all the DVD commentary director tracks, and I'm always being like, have you seen this trailer? And we should go see this movie on Thursday. And I was like, film and TV makes me so happy. So maybe I should try and work in that field.
It does feel better when you do something creative, doesn't it? It just feels like you're accomplishing way more when you're doing something artistic like that.
Yeah, in a sort of fulfilling way. I guess it's also still, in a different way satisfaction, when you working on some law stuff, but it's just so different.
Yeah. So what did your family think when you were like, I'm ditching law and I'm moving into acting?
Well, I didn't tell them, to be honest, because I knew they would take it very poorly. So basically, I told them I was going to take a gap year to just travel and work for a year because Aussies can go to Canada and just get an open work visa for 2 years. And a lot of people do it. They go and work in the ski fields, you know. So
Mm.
they're like, okay, cool, that's fine. See you in a year. But the plan was always to give this acting thing a shot. So then I didn't tell them until I booked my first gig. And then I was like, hey, so surprise, while I was over here, I just thought I'd try this acting thing and I got a job. So I guess I'll just stick it out for a bit.
So they must be excited that I mean, you're obviously, you were successful. You pulled it off. Have they embraced it now? Going, good move.
No, not really. Not really.
That's pretty funny.
Every time I like book something and I'll be like, yeah, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing. They're like, is this the last one? So and you coming home after this one? It's like, nah.
So if you had to connect a dot between law and acting, was there anything that you accomplished or learned in going to school for law or as a lawyer that has now transitioned and worked well to help you as an actor?
Yeah, mainly one thing, because in other ways they're so like opposite. But a lot of the time in law, you're like haggling over language. Like so much is about language, especially contracts and stuff. And you're literally arguing over placement of commas and versus with and all kinds of things. And in a way that transferred over to acting, because now when you get a script and you're breaking it down, I pay a lot of attention to the construction of the writing. And it's like,
Mm.
why is it said this way? It must say something about the character. Like if the character never uses, conjunctions, then I'm like, that's deliberate. That's got to say something about them. So that's probably the biggest thing, I think.
That's awesome. I mean, I love that you take that kind of nuanced approach to your field. And that is so amazing. I'm sure that connects to how well you study for law as well, that you're studying the script that closely. But that's an amazing nuance to the script. I mean, have you, when you're performing a role, have you looked at a script that way and you took this word or two couple of words like you said, and it totally changed how you were thinking about taking a role?
Sometimes, like maybe not. I remember there was one audition I had and it was like really long. It's like a 2-page monologue. And the biggest aha moment was because it was like telling a story. And it was like halfway through, I noticed it switched from like past tense to present tense. And I'm like, right. And in my brain, I'm like, the reason is because now instead of like, like sometimes when you talk about things in the past, you kind of compartmentalized and rationalized.
Mm.
I'm like, oh, the writer switched to present tense because now it's like, you're reaching the emotional part where you can't rationalize or compartmentalize, and now you're like reliving it, and that's why it switched tense. So that's one example I can think of, and was such an aha moment for me.
That is also, as an English teacher, I respect you so much right now for doing that. And the teachers are like, yeah, words are awesome.
Words are awesome. So yeah, hey, we got to respect the writers because it's their like genius. They're the blueprint. They're the everything that makes everything else possible. So.
Or you just figured out what they didn't realize they were doing. They're like, oh shit, he was right. Yeah, no, we did it on purpose. That was us all the way.
No.
So speaking of words and how to and nuance, you recently had a voiceover role in the TV show The Squid Game, or just Squid Game. I don't think there's a line there. Whatever. Yeah, Squid Game. So what did you first think about the concept when you heard about it?
So dubbing gigs are kind of weird because you're not given the scripts or anything. You just go in and you're really only shown the extremely narrow slice of what you're gonna say. But even, and I've done quite a lot of dubbing gigs. But this was one where I went in and I even after like a couple of scenes, I was like, wait up. I feel like this is gonna be big. Like there was just something about it that just felt really really timely and provocative and powerful. So, and then I left the session and I was like, this is going to be big, isn't it? They're like, yeah, well, hit or miss. And then, and then it was Squid Game. So,
yeah, I mean, it definitely became an absolute phenomenon. I mean, there's definitely a few week window where it just seemed like everybody only talked about Squid Game, where,
100%.
And I got to it. I can't remember exactly what, but it took me a while to get around to watching it on Netflix. I was like, I really want to watch this. I don't think I'm going to do that. And then people kept talking about it. And I feel like it was like obligated. And I watched it. I was like, me and my wife, we sat around at night. We were watching it. We're just like, shit, it's 2:00 in the morning. I got work next morning. Fuck, one more episode. We're not gonna, we gotta watch one more episode.
Yeah, so, they're really good at that hook, like just keeping you going. Huh?
Yeah, there at least probably 1 or 2 classes that I had that I was like, today we're watching a movie because I was too freaking tired for watching Squid Game early in the morning.
Classic.
So one thing that had to be a definite issue as a voice actor doing something that's dubbed, because obviously you're not only doing the challenge of reading the script and understanding the character, but you're trying to dub and act for somebody else doing the acting in front of you. Mm-hmm. Now, where is the line between obligation to what you felt the script or how you should perform a certain line and obligation to how the actor is doing that line?
Like it's such a technical art too, because there's the translation, and then they're trying to match the flaps as well, right? Yeah. And that's an important thing. So sometimes things get changed just for the flaps. And I think at the end of the day, if you don't honor what the original actor's done, I think it's going to be such a weird disconnect. So I think first and foremost, I'm trying to just replicate what is already there as best as you can, which is tough because it's a different language and all those kind of things. But I feel like it's the one medium where there is the least amount of freedom as an actor to kind of put your own spin on things.
And it must be challenging because not only are you performing the role and trying to match the energy and the feeling and the emotion of the actor, but as you said, because it's done in a different language, you're trying to match the speed in which they're talking and and how they're what they're stressing. You're also trying to stress at the same time. I mean, that must be extremely complicated. And how much does that break your rhythm as an actor going, oh, I wanted to do this, but I got to pause at the right moment, even though that's awkward for me because that actor obviously did that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Especially I think, when you're dubbing Korean and Japanese projects or Chinese projects, because the structure of sentences is completely different, right? Like in terms of the placement of subject, object, verb. And so a lot of the times where they pause makes so much sense in Korean, but then it makes zero sense in English, where you're like, look over there, my friend. And you're like, but like you're obligated to do that because that's the way that so in the end of the day, I think, like I've kind of learned to just let it go because it is very hard. And even though like when I do my own ADR, sometimes it's like on the day you take weird breaths and stuff, and then trying to replicate it's like nigh impossible. So I've been lucky that we've had directors who I really like and trust, and they just tell me what to do, and I just do my best to do it. And I kind of don't worry too much about my own. If it's my own performance, I get so up like, oh, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. But for dubbing, I'm just like, what do you need? You tell me, and I'll just try and execute it.
So you find that when you do dub work, that the director actually has far more, or you give the director far more control over your performance than you would if this was maybe your role, live action role, or your voice acting specifically?
Yeah, I think so, because it feels, like usually it's such a collaborative medium, of like you and the director both have strong ideas, and you kind of, and the other actor, of course, and you're all coming together in this miraculous thing to just, and what happens on the day just happens, right?
Yeah.
Whereas dubbing, you're coming in after the fact. So yeah, I'm just like, you just tell me, and I'll just do it.
So when did you realize the show was going to be so massive?
Honestly, it was like, it was probably after the first week of just looking at the social media reactions. Like it was like, oh, okay, wow, this is like really, really, really trending. This is next level.
So from what I understand, Squid Game is getting a second season. Have you already been approached with information for the second season, or like a part?
No. I know. Actors are like the last people to know, unless you're like Brad Pitt. So I know nothing, I'm afraid.
Well, if the producers are listening to the show, damn it, get him started in a role, Mr. Shorten in a role right now. It must happen. Make it so.
Hey, call me.
Yes, indeed. And I'm sure we had that kind of pull, but but give it a shot anyway. You're also in a fantastic movie called Swan Song. Can you tell our listeners a little about the movie?
Yeah, Swan Song is it's this cool sci-fi movie with Mahershala Ali and Glenn Close and Naomi Harris, and it's set in the future where uh, this one scientist has perfected cloning, and basically in the movie, Mahershala Ali is terminally ill, and then he gets secretly cloned, but the clone doesn't have the illness, and then it's kind of this debate of like, is it moral and ethical for the clone then to just secretly take your place in your life so your family has no idea, and then you can just pass away?
Yeah, I must admit, I watched that movie last night. I actually subscribed to Apple Plus so I could watch the movie.
Oh,
So you got them a subscription from me. Thank you very much.
hear that, Apple?
Yeah. So yeah, now you owe Mr. Shorten a percentage of that $5 a month.
Yeah.
But once again, it was a very smart movie, and without ruining anything, there's certain directions I thought for a second they were going to take the movie in that I thought they were going to cheapen it, but they didn't. They went back and they held their integrity. They made the movie the way it was seemed like it was supposed to go, and it was so smart that they did that. And I was glad they didn't go to some of those roads that seemed like the easy, like oh, they're gonna go that route. It's gonna become like a horror movie at the end.
Yeah.
But they didn't. I was like, all right, smart freaking move. It was a very smart movie.
Thank you. Yeah, Ben Cleary, the writer director, he's so talented and so nice. And you're right. I think I think in different hands, that's what would have happened. It would have turned into this crazy horror movie about this psychotic clone. But Ben wanted to tap into, understandably, Cameron's anxiety about that. But then that's not what it's about. So yeah, I'm glad you liked it too.
Yeah, and like I said, it was great that you could that once it happened, you could feel like you could trust that director at that point and go, you felt that he was going for something much higher brow than, like I said, as you mentioned, what another director might have done and turned into, like the horror popcorn flick that you've been like, all right, I think I felt like I've seen this, but the way he kept to it, I was like, all right, credit to this guy. He and everyone involved did, they just did a great job. I mean, you're in the movie, Glenn Close, Mahershala Ali, Aquafina, I think was it Naomi Harris or Natalie Harris? I can't remember.
Yeah, Naomi Harris.
Naomi Harris. I mean, that's a hell of a cast. So I mean, when did you know this was something special while you were doing it as well? That this is a cast that is just you're in a star-studded cast.
Yeah, so when I got the audition, I knew Mahershala was attached, and even that on its own was just like, I can't believe this. And then after I booked it, we slowly got the other news, like, oh, now Glenn's joined, and now Naomi, and it was just like, wow. I definitely I had a moment one day in the makeup trailer where Mahershala's on my right and Glenn's on my left, and I literally was just like, what am I doing here? Am I supposed to be here? This is absurd. Like, these are two titans who I've watched on screen doing some of the most profound work for like years, and to be there with them is such a privilege and an honor.
Now, what was it like on set with them? Did they treat you as one of, as at their level, or were they kind of like the distant Glenn Close will only be spoken to during the during the shoot?
No, they like, and I seriously mean this, or I wouldn't say it. Glenn and Mahershala are some of the most gracious, down to earth, humble, generous people I know. And like, Glenn is still like so effervescent, just like skipping to set and singing, and like that everyone just loves being there and loves the work. And Mahershala, again, the man has 2 Oscars. He once said something to me, because I was kind of just talking to him about like pressure and all this stuff. And he's like, listen. He's like, obviously I do my work. He's prepped and he comes to play. But he's like, I feel a weight lifted because I don't have to have all the answers. He's like, because if I don't have the answer, you have the answer, or Glenn has the answer, or Ben has the answer. He's like, everyone here on this set is an artist in their own right, at the top of their game. So he's like, one of you will have the answer. And I'm like, I can't imagine everyone at his level saying something like that. You know what I mean? That's so, so humbling.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's such a humble thing. It's odd for anyone to admit where they may not be up to par on any part of their life, and to say, if I can't, it's up to you. That's an amazing statement for someone to make.
He's a real one. He's incredible. He really is. He's incredible.
What was it important for you to hear that's even at, like Glenn Close's level or whatever, they're still questioning what they're doing and relying on everyone else to, help what they're doing?
Yeah, because I guess you get to this thing like you just see these performances and you're like, wow, I'll never be that good. Like that's so incredible. But then it is a nice reminder of like it is such a collaborative medium. You know what I mean? Like, and
Mm,
I always liken it to sports, which some people find weird, but I don't. And it's like few, even the Chicago Bulls, like sure they had Jordan, but Jordan's still being supported by like
mm.
everyone else, by Scottie Pippen and by like all the guys, by Larry Bird. So film's the same. Like you can be Mahershala, but if the rest of us are letting him down, then the movie's gonna tank and just all swings all the ways.
Well, I do think a sport metaphor is perfect for almost any group activity. As you said, I mean, you got to have your Jordan, you got your Rodman, you got all these guys, and if they, any one of them weakest link, it's just going to look bad, and at the same time, everyone who does well lifts everyone else around them. You want to be the guy, in on a set and be like, someone's, the fans are watching, be like, what the hell that guy doing in the corner though? That's distracting. What the hell is he doing?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I think another cool thing is that it seems like you tend to do a lot of high concept projects. Like I said, you had Squid Game, Glitch, where we have time to talk about, hopefully, Swan Song. Are you intentionally looking for projects that are these high concept projects, or do you just find yourself falling into high concept projects?
I in a weird way, I think it's a bit of both because it's like I know what I like in my personal life, and I audition for everything. We all do, and you just get whatever you get. But it seems to be, because there's been roles in the past where I'm like, oh, if I got that, that'd be like a nice paycheck. But I never get those roles, and then I get lucky enough to book these ones, and maybe it's like the universe saying, this is what is for you, and we're
Mm.
not going to give you the other things because you wouldn't be good in them and you wouldn't be happy. So yeah, at least that's what I tell myself.
Well, I mean, part of me is wondering if, as someone who's been a lawyer and, obviously well educated, if there's an air of about you that just says this is an educated individual, he can do this, he does the smart shows, like the academic swagger.
Maybe.
So you play am I pronouncing it Rafa?
Yes, Rafa.
Rafa, in the movie. So what were you told about Rafa prior to getting the role, and what kind of decisions did you make about the character during it?
Yeah, so it's such an interesting thing, because all I got prior was a quick chat with Ben and the script. So then you go away and you do all your own work and you make all your own decisions, and then you get to set, and then I feel like it's constantly evolving all the time. And I remember we're like a week in, and then sometimes we'll be like, oh, we're only just starting to find who this character is for like, and I remember Will Smith once was just like, you're always trying to find it until the last day of shooting. And he's like, and sometimes I didn't find it. And I think we all know what movies those are, but I didn't find it. And I laughed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that's honest.
But so initially I had this idea that Rafa was going to be very warm and kind and gentle. But then when we got to set, Glenn was kind of already doing that. And so then it's like, well, you can't have like everyone just being the same. So then it was about adjusting Rafa to best support the story. So then we ended up making him a little bit more distant and a little bit cooler because that is what made more sense for the story in the moment.
So when you're playing Rafa, because well, the movie is fantastic. They don't give you a lot of background information on who Rafa is or where he came from. As an actor, did you kind of fill in the dots yourself and try to come up with some sort of fictional background for him, or did you keep to only what you had in the script?
It's a little bit of both. Like I tend to do a lot of background work just for my own grounding. But at the end of the day, the better the writing is, the less it's just all on the page. And if you just say the words with intention, it's going to be great because it's so well written. So, I think we talked a little bit about like, my relationship with Glenn mainly, and how we kind of met up and all that stuff, which is all useful and playable. But it's interesting. In this one, we're so much more in the moment because it's like so much of the movie is with Cameron, and we've never met, like Ralph has never met Cameron before. So you really can just discover everything on the day, if that makes sense.
One thing I always wonder about a movie, especially like Swan Song, which again, for listeners, highly recommend. If you got to subscribe, fuck it, do it. It's $5 a month, survive it. Is that I kind of like, we always kind of discuss actors' impact in a movie. And sometimes what I think about is the movie's impact on the actor. And a movie like Swan Song, there's a great line in the movie. Dr. Joe Scott, she says, noticing, if no one notices that the person's a fake, where's the lie? And I think that's an interesting philosophical question of, how do you deal with, these real people? If you don't tell them, is it still that person? So did you ever think about the philosophical concerns of the movie, and where did you stand on whether or not what they're doing was moral to not only the individual but to the family? Obviously, that you have to, once again, it's never told. Well, I don't know, that's a spoiler a little bit, but it may never be told, and has to, I guess, live with artificial guy.
This is a great question. I mean, it's almost like the ship of Theseus thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. and I've debated that many times, and I have my answer on that one.
I mean, I think it all depends on where the technology's at. So, if the technology is at where it says it's at in Swan Song, where they're like, it's identical, then I think, I think she's probably right. Where's the lie? And a lot of us talked a lot about whether we do it. And I think I've always said, for me right now, right, like I do have a long-term partner, but we don't have kids or anything. So it's like, if I got terminally ill, well, shit happens. But if I was in Cameron's shoes, where where he is in the movie with kids and another kid on the way, I would probably do it. I would probably do it.
Would you tell your partner though that's what you were doing?
No, because I actually agree with Glenn Close's character about that. Once you tell them, then they're always going to doubt it, right? Like, it's like you plant that seed, I think. So I think she's right in that. It only works if you don't tell them, because if they ever, as soon as you tell them, they're just going to be second guessing all the time. And, I think it's interesting because, if we were cloned right now, even if there's like two of you, the environment would start to change you. So if you met up in 5 years, the two of you'd be dramatically different people.
Right.
So it's like, I feel like any changes in Cameron, the clone, are going to be just environmental changes anyway. But if you knew that there was a clone, you would probably start to be like, well, it's not you. So anyway.
I mean, I always wonder if the clone, I mean, can it ever not, is there a moment where we would actually be able to figure out that something feels off? You know what I'm saying? And I always wonder, like, would there be a moment, as you said, where there has to be some differences? I mean, even if you make the person genetically as close as humanly possible and keep the memories, I can't help but think there'd be something still different. I mean, even the fact that Cameron had that, it was not part of the brain tumor. I mean, that's part of the plot. The brain tumor, and this guy never had to think about stuff like that necessarily, which I assume that part of the memory would have to be cut, or you would figure out the rest of the dots. Is still at that moment a different person.
Yeah.
I mean, because like I said, I mean, I assume that changes you. I mean, once you have an inoperable brain tumor, that's got to make you different as a person, and that memory has to cut back, I guess, before the tumor, or the guy would be like, "Hey, weird enough, I don't have a tumor anymore. I wonder what happened there." I mean, I don't remember going to the doctor.
Totally. And then I guess it's the argument of like, if he never got the brain tumor, he would be on this trajectory. So then if we get the clone who never has a brain tumor, theoretically they're going to be on the same trajectory that he would have been if he never got it's so.
Yeah. And I must say, this part did pop in my brain though, which was kind of at least to me it was funny thought, which is, okay, so you have the clone, right? And the clone never had the brain tumor and is living his life. He's going to get that bill from the doctor at some point. Like somebody, the doctor called in like, so how's the brain tumor going? He's like, wait, what? The brain tumor? I don't remember you talking to me about that. Like, yeah, about 6 months ago. Like, oh, this is kind of weird, man. I don't remember this conversation.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that caught me. And who's paying the bill? You know, like at some point the wife was gonna be like, why is there like a $10,000 bill to the corporation of cloning people? That's weird, don't you think? You know, that part stuck at the end going, they need to connect those dots. That company needs to figure out how to cover their tracks a little bit better.
They need you. You need to be in the sequel as a consultant. Like,
But it really was. I do think it was a genius of a movie. I think the philosophical aspects were wonderful. The acting was wonderful. And I really do think that's a movie that I think, and I may be wrong on this one, and you know, I'd love to hear your opinion on it, may not have existed without streaming. You know, if this was a theater only movie, it may not have stayed the way it was.
yeah, because we constantly talk about how the mid-budget movie is kind of dead,
Yeah.
and I think you're right. For the most part, it is, but maybe this is streaming has kind of got its own version of the mid-budget movie, and this is it. So you're probably right. You're probably right.
And I think that's a great thing that streaming has allowed. I mean, there's obviously some issues with streaming and obviously theater, but these movies I don't think would have. There's a lot of movies I think that wouldn't have existed if streaming didn't give them the opportunity. And Swan Song is just one of those gems that thank God for streaming, because once again, how many of us would have caught it in theaters or would have got lost among the Spider-Man No Way Home kind of thing?
Yeah,
you know.
And would it, even if it got made, would it have got the P&A spend that would have allowed it to be as successful in the theaters? Probably not.
Right.
So,
and I'll wager they would have they probably would have advertised it as a potential horror. You know, I think they would have gone in that direction. You know, commercials sometimes they'll twist the movie, and you're watching, you'll be like, "Oh, this is a thriller." It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not really.
Totally.
So, you're also in another movie, thriller called Glitch. Can you kind of give our listeners your pitch for it?
Yeah. So, Glitch is in the do you remember that movie with Tom Hardy, Lock, where it's all in the car?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, except now because we have, video calls, there's actually cuts to other people because they're video calling in. And it's about this tech guy trying to sell his startup. And all these other things are happening, and he's being backstabbed, and there's all this corporate espionage while he's driving to the place to sign the contracts.
That sounds really awesome. I mean, it must have been really challenging to film to keep the tension alive in one locale.
Well, so I'm not the guy in the car. I play one of his friends who calls in all the time, and it was a weird one in that, like, I shot all my stuff by myself, and I just had one of the PAs reading the other person's lines, so I have no idea. I never interacted with the other actors, so I hope it turned out.
That sounds like the perfect movie for COVID.
I mean, I think it kind of was, like that. So,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go, please.
I would say in the movie you're Noah. Is it Reppert?
Yeah.
Noah Reppert. So what were you told about your character prior to your role?
Just that he is like, he's one of the business partners, and he's just like this really eccentric, high energy guy who's just kind of like, he's a weird dude who, like, does crosswords and is obsessed with music in kind of a strange way. So they just wanted this really big, high energy guy. Maybe not like 80s Coke energy, but like we're getting close to that.
Just low level pills. Low level pill energy.
Just some casual amphetamines, whatever.
Great description. That'll be on your call sheet. Low level amphetamines as your acting direction. So, since you never were on set with these actors, how did you choreograph your scenes with them? Considering, once again, I assume there's interacting, but you're never really with them.
Yeah, it's another one where you just have to trust the director, right? And I think luckily a career in voiceover had kind of prepped me in that a lot of times it's the same, especially COVID. You just record your own lines, and then the directors cut it together. So they have to be so clear, like, otherwise it's going to be a mess. So my performance is in your hands, directing and editing gods.
which is perfect. If there ever is an issue, you can just blame them. I'm sure it was fantastic.
Just throwing people under the bus. Like,
right.
you suck, not me.
That's what you get to do when you're huge. You'd be like, it was their fault, goddamn it! I'm throwing them under the damn bus.
Whereas, I think though, learning from Will Smith, it's like, no, you should own it. You should own it.
Did he ever say which movie those were? That he said, when I never got it.
He didn't, but I think we all know. There's
a few possibilities.
But
I do like Will Smith a lot, but there definitely would be a few possibilities that happened on.
100%.
So when is Glitch slated to reach theater or released or streaming, and where can listeners find it?
Unfortunately, I don't know. I know they're in post-production right now, but I haven't heard from the guys in a while. So I wish I could tell you, but I have no idea.
So what is next from you in the world of roles?
There's a couple things coming out this year which I can't talk about, but the one I can talk about is I did just do a little guest star on A Million Little Things.
Oh, very cool. So when is that going to air?
I think I'm in episode 14 of the new season, so I believe that's like end of March.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about the role you're playing, or is it?
Oh, it's kind of like the reveal is part of the joke.
Okay.
But I'll just say like I'm an old friend of one of the main characters, and we haven't seen each other for a while.
All right, very cool. So we're looking for it mid-March, huh?
Yeah.
All right, good. So, Mr. Shorten, it's a pleasure talking with you. And when you're ready for these other roles, come back on and talk about them.
Sweet, would love to. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
It's 100% my pleasure, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.